Hey everyone, this is Steph, and you're watching Stay Strong. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this week. I hope everyone's had a blessed week, and I feel that God has a word for you guys today. So, today I wanted to talk about something a little different, something a little edgy. It's something that we hear all the time as Christians, and I feel like it has to be addressed. So, what I want to talk about today is judgment and accountability. And I feel that it's so important to talk about this as Christians because first of all, we hear it all the time. We always hear how Christians are such judgmental people, and it's a huge cause of what turns people away from the church is their perception of us as being very judgmental. And that's a problem because as Christians, we are to be representatives of Christ, and Christ is love. So if we are not approaching people in love, that could be very problematic, and it can be quite detrimental, and it can happen very, very quickly without us even realizing it. So I wanted to make the distinction between judgment and accountability. Now, the Bible does state that we as Christians are to keep each other accountable, and that we will be accountable for our words and for our actions. A few verses that I can take you to really quickly, and I have my Bible today, my handy dandy Bible. One verse is Matthew 12. We're going to look at verses 35 through 37, and it says this. A good person produces good works from a good heart, and an evil person produces evil words from an evil heart. And I tell you this, that you must give an account on Judgment Day for every idle word you speak. The words you say now reflect your fate then. Either you will be justified by them or you will be condemned by them. And really quickly, I just feel it's important to point out every idle word. I think it's important to point out that God does see everything, and he does take notice of everything, and he hears everything, even when we're not thinking about it, even when we don't realize it. And he keeps an account of all that. And even further than that, you never know the words you can say, how they might affect somebody, even if you don't intend the words to come out that way. You don't know how somebody is going to take that. If you mean to correct somebody and they take it as judgment, well, first of all, it's lack of clear communication, but that can be what turns that person away from Christ. Nobody wants to feel condemned. And so it's okay to correct people, but it's important to do it in love. And there's another verse also in Matthew. It's Matthew 18. It's verses 15 through 18. So this one's a little bit longer, so bear with me. So this verse is basically, if you're asking, okay, well, how do I approach people in love and in Christ? These verses say, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the flaw. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you are unsuccessful, take one or two others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by 2 or 3 witnesses. If that person still refuses to listen, take your case to the church. If the church decides you are right, but the other person won't accept it, treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector. I tell you this, whatever you prohibit on earth is prohibited in heaven. Whatever you allow on earth is allowed in heaven. That verse, those verses actually, there's just so much in them, but it's so strong and it's so convicting. If we could take a moment to just break this down. So first it says, if another believer sins against you, go privately. So that's the first thing, is when you want to address something, it's always better to have it on a one-on-one conversation than to put that person out there either in public or in front of people, have that person feel uncomfortable, because then that's when that person can feel condemned, they can feel unloved, and they're not going to receive it as well as they would if you were to just go one-on-one and just say, hey, this is how I feel, this is what's going on. So then it goes on to say, if the person does not accept it, then to go back with 2 or 3 witnesses. Now, the thing with this is you go to 2 or 3 witnesses, and even when you go to 2 or 3 witnesses, it's not to gang up on that person. It's just so that the words don't just seem like they're just coming from you or coming from a bitter heart, and that way your intent is better understood. But even then, you still have to approach that person in love, because again, they can feel like they're being ganged up on. So it's important to discuss it, but to discuss it the right way. And then it even goes on to saying, if that person still refuses, take that case to the church, and if the church decides you are right, but the other person won't accept it, treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector. Now, those words can seem a little harsh, because if you read the Old Testament, the tax collectors were just very corrupt, not good people. They're not perceived as very nice people in the Old Testament. So those words can seem a little harsh. But I would encourage you to think of it as there comes a point where if you decide and you establish that you are not getting through to this person, sometimes it's okay to just let it go, have your peace about it, and just give it to God. Maybe you are not the particular person for that person to set them straight, and God has something else in mind for that person. Keep in mind that you are not to save everybody, but sometimes you just have to let it go and have your peace about it. Once you have your peace about it, you put it in God's hands and let God do what he has to do. But then it also continues to say, I tell you this, what you prohibit on earth, it will be prohibited in heaven, and what you allow on earth will also be allowed in heaven. And that it's just so heavy to think that everything you do on this earth counts. Every word you say, every action. So we need to be mindful of that, especially when we're confronting one another, when we're confronting our brothers and sisters in Christ. And this goes for anyone, not just other believers. Now, keep in mind that if you're going to confront a non-believer, they're obviously not going to receive it the same way. But again, you have to approach people in love. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So the difference between judgment and accountability is judgment is you are condemning people and trying to correct them in a way that makes you seem like I'm right and you're wrong. Accountability is just making sure that as brothers and sisters, we are helping each other and keeping each other on the right path. And sometimes that has to take some correction. As humans, we're flawed. We stray off the path sometimes, and it's okay to help each other stay on that path. But again, we need to display the love that Christ displayed for us. And that's the only way we're going to get through to people, is when people feel loved and they feel encouraged and they feel challenged to be a better person and not feeling condemned. I hope this all makes sense. Okay, so and then the last verse I will leave you with, it's in Luke chapter 17. It's verse 3, and it says, this is Jesus talking to his disciples. He says, I am warning you, if another believer sins, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. That's the important part I want to get to, is forgiveness. We need to be, as Christians, we need to be empathetic of the fact that And not everybody is perfect. We were not perfect. I know I am not perfect. There was once a time where I was lost, and now I am found. And I am empathetic of the fact that because I've gone through that, I can now understand other people and I can relate to them, and that's what helps me love them more. And when somebody does something to you, the important part is to not to be quick to judge them or to condemn them, but to forgive them. And going back to what I said earlier, being as representatives of Christ, to show love, to show forgiveness, just as he showed it to us. So who are we not to show it to other people? So I wanted to challenge you with that. If there is something or someone that you feel it in your heart, you're either holding bitterness, unforgiveness, or you want to correct someone and help someone, but they're not receiving it, I just encourage you that if you do it, if you do anything you do in love, whether that is to correct them, to forgive them, if you do it in love, it's going to be 10 times better than any outcome than if you were to just put it into your own hands. Leave it in God's hands and let him do what he needs to do. Love you guys. Stay strong. Hey everyone, I hope somebody was encouraged by this message, and I hope somebody was challenged to just think about what we say and what we do and just to do it better. I love you guys so much. Always remember that you can comment on this video. Please subscribe to this channel, that way you're getting all the updates, and share this with all your families and friends. And don't be afraid to reach out to me if you need prayer requests, if you have suggestions for something you want to hear me talk about. I am open to anything and everything. So I love you guys. Stay encouraged, and I will see you next time. Bye.